My name is Andrew Lind. I'm a first-year MBA at MIT Sloan, and it is my pleasure today to introduce our panel, Investing with the Bulls, Wall Street Analytics in Sports. Our panelists today are Steve Paliuca, Managing General Partner and co-owner of the Boston Celtics, and Josh Harris, co-founder of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment. Our moderator today is Eric Chemi, CNBC reporter, who covers finance and sports business. Our panel is part of the business track, which is presented by Ticketmaster. The panel will run for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes of question and answer after. You can submit your questions via Twitter using the hashtag SportsInvesting. And with that, I'll hand it off to Eric.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Lin. Appreciate it. This is my iPad, so at the end, I'll get the questions that if you guys put it on Twitter, Andrew will post it here, and then I will ask our two guests of honor. So today's panel is about Wall Street analytics coming into sports, and we've got two interesting owners because Mr. Paliuca, if you don't know, in addition to being one of the owners of the Celtics, he is, would you say co-founder, in charge, co-chairman of Bain Capital.
Large and in charge.
Large and in charge. He's helping run one of the great large investment firms here in the state of Massachusetts, here in Boston. And then Mr. Harris, of course, is a co-founder of Apollo. That's a New York-based investment firm. Both you guys, I would say private equity, if we had to pick the one term to summarize the type of investments you guys do. And you're doing sports. So I want to start with the whole idea of, in private equity, everyone talks about, well, you got to have an exit. You got to buy these things in order to get out of them. But with these sports teams, a lot of people, they like to hold on to them for as long as possible. Do you guys have any plans to exit the Celtics or any of the HBSE portfolio?
Well, I mean, I'll start. I think, I love being involved with the business of sports and also with the teams themselves, and it transcends really dollars and cents for me in terms of just really enjoying enjoying the athletes, enjoying the sports. You know, I was a college wrestler, and we're high school or college athletes, but being able to be around the best athletes in the world, going to the games, I think connecting with the cities. My grandfather was a U.S. postal worker from Philly. The other grandfather, grew up in Newark. My dad grew up in Newark. My mom grew up in Philly. So at this point, and then there's just a world of opportunity around the teams, whether it be venture capital or other investing that you can do or businesses that you can build. And so, like for me, speaking personally, I enjoy it. I have no plans to sell the teams or sell assets, and it's really a labor of love. You're a steward for the cities. What you do really matters. To the cities, and then also it's a great platform to help kids and communities. So I think, like for me, no plans to sell.
I would say my guess is because you guys have owned it now, pushing 20 years. You've owned the Celtics. It's not like this was a 7-year typical type of trade. So my guess is it's probably closer to a no than a yes because you've already gone past that exit period.
Yeah, very similar to Josh. This was a labor of love. I had a similar background. I grew up started in Framingham and was always a big Celtics fan, so this was kind of a dream come true for most of us in the ownership group. We were fans first, and the Celtics hadn't won in a long time when we were able to acquire it. That's back in 2003. It's just, Philly is the same way. Philly and Boston are old sports towns. The sports teams are integrated into the town. It's part of the culture, and it's just an amazing asset. We built, as Josh talked about, we built an incredible community business. The Shamrock Foundation has helped donated millions of dollars to children's causes. And for me, I was a gym rat, growing up, and used to watch all the old players, all the way back to Hal Greer and those guys, and versus the Celtics. And they'll probably have to carry me out of the garden in a box, or maybe bury me in one of those potholes beneath the parquet.
How do you guys look at the investment, though? Because when you're doing stuff for Bain or for Apollo, clearly it's about making money, returning capital to shareholders. It can't be emotional because there's just too many options out there and then too many other counterparties involved. But with the sports teams, is it really about the ROI? Is it we're trying to win games here, we're winning championships? Or is it I want to win, and as long as I don't lose money, it's okay? Like, how do you there's got to be a buffer, a little margin for like, I'm okay not making as much money doing this because I'm doing it for fun.
I mean, everyone probably has a different answer. For me, this is all about winning championships. Like,
At any cost?
We really
Not
want to.
at any cost, right?
Well, I mean, ultimately, like we all compete in systems, right? That constrain. You can't spend your way to success. Really, it's a lot more complicated. There are cap systems, but I think ultimately these are very, very long run assets with time horizons that are, multiple decades. And so, if you win for a city, if you deliver for a city, and if you're in the right city. And I think certainly the cities that we play in are the right cities, and certainly Boston is, a well-known sports town. Ultimately, the value will come, and the reality of sports, particularly the major leagues, the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, the Premier League, all of the major baseball, MLB, the globalization of media, content, the ability to watch sports all over the world. On your phone, whenever you want. There's this huge tailwind on all the sports. So all of us have done well, and so I'm not that worried about that. It'll work out in the long run, and I think for us, we still have work to do. We haven't, we
got one up
came
on
in.
you right now.
They came in and they won a championship, and until we do that's really, we're not going to rest till we do that, and it's hard. It's hard. It's very hard. There's 30 other people or 31 other people, depending on the league, that want to do it. So for us, we're focused on that. And, if we do that, value will take care of itself.
My guess is similar answer.
We're very
Then I'll
similar.
get into some stuff where you have disagreements on, right?
Yeah. No, very similar answer. We came in, we had three priorities. We kind of looked at this as we would a private equity deal and saying, what do you need to do to succeed? And the first one is win on the court. I mean, that's the obvious one. Everything stems from winning. So we came in and actually were one of the first people to invest very heavily in stats, the Moneyball approach. In fact, this conference was started by Daryl Morey, which is incredible, the growth. The first conference I attended with Daryl, for Daryl sitting in the audience, I think it was in an MIT classroom. The total attendance must have been less than 100 people. So you can see the power of sports and how it's expanded since then. But winning's the number one objective. The number two objective was to really use the Celtics brand as a community asset. And that's become very powerful over time. Our players have gotten involved. The whole NBA has gotten involved with NBA Cares. And so that creates a positive flywheel for fan engagement for our players, and even more bonding, with the whole engagement model. And thirdly, back in the day, back in 2003, many clubs, including the Celtics, weren't doing everything they could for the fans, trying to get that engagement. So they restricted access to players. They really didn't have a database of any sorts. So we brought into the business side technology, and back then it was email, but then it has now evolved into Twitter and social media, which again accounts for this explosion of sports throughout the globe. And what I love about the NBA is it's one of the two truly global sports. It's basically soccer and the NBA. And the NBA has been gaining share ever since we bought the club, so it's been fantastic.
So one thing that's different about your two approaches, with you guys, it's just the Celtics, basically, as your main sports property. But with HBSC, your sports company, it's the Sixers, it's the New Jersey Devils, it's the Prudential Center. I mean, I was reading through the list, and it goes on and on. I mean, there's esports, you've got a piece of a soccer team, New England Crystal Palace, you've got a venture capital arm that invests in sports and tech. So in that sense, it's very different. You guys are much more focused, and you guys it's like a whole ecosystem of all these sports investments. So it's almost like I want you guys to debate with each other, which was the better model. Do you want to be broader out, or do you want to just stay niche like that?
Well, I don't think there is a better model. I mean, I think everyone takes it in their own individualized and personal way. But I think for us, we love sports. I love sports. I have an incredible group of partners. One of them sitting right there, Michael Rubin, was up here. Founded Fanatics. Like David Blitzer runs a big part of Blackstone. And we enjoy each other's company. We enjoy doing stuff together. We love sports, and we love attending the games, being at the games, being stewards of a public asset, and that's really what sports is. It's interesting. Bain and Apollo have these massive portfolios. Apollo has 350,000 employees that work for its companies, and some of the companies are very, very large. And no one cares about. We used to own a big chemical company called Lyondell, and no one cares about the price of polypropylene. What they care about, but people care a lot about the starting lineup of the Sixers or the Devils or who Palace is putting on the pitch. So I think, for us, we love it, and we are participating in that tailwind. From a business point, we have a great management team, Scott O'Neill and his team. They're so building it. There's a lot of learning that cuts across many sports, whether it be analytics or sports science or customer engagement or fan engagement or how you advance media or social media in developing and far off lands, and get fan engagement over there. So I think there's a lot of synergy that cuts across the platform, and at the end of the day, it all comes back to having fun and making a difference for us.
Where did you guys, when you each bought, let's say we'll focus on the NBA teams because there's similarity there. Did you find that, okay, I'm bringing something from my financial background that they're just not doing here? The way you've mentioned modern management theory in the past, was there just something that, wow, these teams are not run well? Yeah. If this was a private equity investment, we would totally revamp. I mean, were you shocked at the beginning to see, just sort of find what that was?
Well, it was interesting. Again, I think that the classic model back then, pre-2003, most folks thought they were running a basketball team. And really, as Josh says, it's much broader than that. It's a fan engagement issue. And it's very similar to Bain Capital or Apollo companies. You want your customers to love you. You want your customers to become fans. And I don't think the leagues and things, we're treating customers as they should be, trying to maximize exposure to players, maximize engagement, have special deals for fans, have special, Fanatics has done a great job personalizing gear. So we came in and said, we've got to change that. We've got to make players more accessible. We've got to be more out in the community. We've got to, the Celtics are interesting.
But now it's almost like the opposite. It's like you look at some of these guys on Twitter and Instagram. It's like, maybe we need to make them a little less accessible to everyone.
Look, it's a free country.
They do what they want to do, right? And they express themselves the way they want to express them, and like that's.
I mean, the most interesting story is when we first bought the team, the other regime had not had Red Auerbach involved. So Wick and I went down and we met Red Auerbach. And we went down to Washington, D.C. He had the same office he'd had for 20 years. He had a rotary phone. He had 1,000 letter openers that he'd gotten over some of these things. And we sat down and said, we really wanted to go down and get permission for him and get him involved in the operation. And one of our key things was to bring more modern in-game things to the arena, such as dancers. We were the only team in the NBA at that point in time that didn't have dancers. 29 teams had cheerleaders, dancers. We had nothing. And so we got into our pitch, and then Red said, before you give your pitch, I want to give you 2 pieces of advice. The first is, get players who are instigators and not retaliators. So we wrote that down. And then he said, never get cheerleaders, they're nothing but trouble. So we had to shelve the plan, and I think we finally did it 5 or 6 years later. But the whole, it has become more about engagement, a community, interaction with players, video games, social media. That's why this whole thing has exploded, and it's been great to see.
But to your point, this is ultimately the same business principles exists across, this business or any other business. I mean, obviously, you want to have the best people. If you get the best people off the court, you're going to get the best people on the court.
Where do you find the best people off the court? Are they other sports executives, or do you actually want to bring people in from other industries? Because this business does overlap with tech and media and event management. There's so many other things that are not really basketball or sports related.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, but I do think sports is a nuanced relationship business. And I think having people, I think we've done both. I think that having leadership that has relationships around the leagues, around the media, around the customer base and the sponsorship base. I think if you think about sports, right, it's media, it's event management, you're selling tickets, you're selling sponsorships, and then there are things around the edge. But I think that I think generally you need sports leadership that you can build on, and then I think there's a lot of similarities. We bought the Sixers in a so-called corporate carve-out, right? That's a tried and true private equity approach where we negotiated with Comcast that owned the Flyers, the arena, and the media, and we carved it out and ring-fenced what was a division of Comcast. And usually when you do that, magic happens, and it happened here. Like, you put in place a focused team, and all of a sudden, we got fan engagement going in the right direction, and obviously built the team over time into a contending team. And so there are a lot of similarities. The difference is, and obviously you want to bring modern approaches, like this notion that analytics has no place in sports. I mean, it's hard to even say.
Does anyone think that here?
I mean, I don't. I mean, obviously it's a tool. I mean, you can't go too far with it, but yes, I think there are people who still believe, and we've run into the old school, GMs, or whether it be hockey, soccer, or basketball. There's no place for analytics. A lot like even great GMs, and after a while, like that obviously isn't the case. Like the analytics, the use of science across sports is the same as every other business. If you can figure out how to save people's lives that have cancer, you can figure out how to make your lineup better or your customer engagement better with sports. But there also are differences, and a lot of it has to do with the media focus and the celebrity nature of who you're dealing with, your players, your coaches, the other people are in and around the front office, and the fact that the fans really care. Like Philly and Boston are sports cities. They care, and like for us, that's a big advantage. They hold you accountable. They're on you constantly to make improvement.
Do you ever, because they do hold you accountable.
Big
the
time.
media, the fans.
Big
Do you ever
time.
just think like, honestly, this headache isn't worth it. I would have been better off just sticking with Bain and Apollo. No one would know who I am. No one would bother me. This is hurting my real investments because I'm wasting too much time with whatever trade we did or didn't do at the deadline.
I think the first thing, if you take this lesson from private equity, what I love about the private equity business, we're very long-term oriented. So we don't have quarterly earnings.
Fans are not long-term oriented, right?
No, but I think what you learn is that if you're going to run any successful business, you have to be long-term oriented, which means you can't run the team by what the press says or by any kind of criticisms. You've kind of got to stay the course. And I agree with Josh, it's all about people. So we try to create a great culture at Bain Capital where people are going to try to build great businesses, not just trying to make money. And sports, we're trying to win a championship, not just trying to make money. That being said, we also want to win, and the fans, when we came in, people were scared we're going to disinvest in the team. It's a misnomer in private equity, as Josh knows, that we come in and try to just skinny down
People think
companies.
it gets gutted.
Because you only win in business and you win in basketball if you invest in growth. You need to have a growth business. So immediately, I think when we bought the team, they were spending a total of $3.5 million on all basketball operations. And so we immediately started to lose money, and we went the budget up 7 times. They weren't doing international travel. They didn't have an analytics department. They didn't have modern technology. So we increased the investment 7 times over the first couple of years to try to win that championship. So you got to make the investments. You got to stick with it. You got to take a long-term approach, very similar to that of private equity.
But look, personally, I love the Philly fans. They're tough. They're smart. Is it always a good night when I turn on Twitter? No.
You got to stay off of Twitter.
It's definitely not.
You got to stay off the mentions.
Twitter. You got to stay off of Twitter.
But it's very helpful to win a championship because
He's rubbing it in. Look at this guy.
No, it's
playoffs start April 14th, man.
It's very helpful to win a championship because a lot of that pressure, I'm saying in a
It's so
positive
easy.
way,
Just win a title.
You're
it's
on the
fine.
way. Your club is doing fantastic. So
Look how condescending he is, right?
we even gave you Al Horford.
Yeah, exactly. And Markel. Look, I think obviously, I find like people are a little short-term oriented, and your job is to look by that and do the right thing, what you think is right. And there's always and then there's obviously articles of people that want to have immediate success, and that doesn't really reconcile with what you have to do to win. So. I always like to think about like the day after, the month after, the year after, and like if you keep focused on what people have not won in sports that have been volatile in their strategies. People have taken a long-term approach.
Right. Usually you get to the
arbitrage.
playoffs, you lose the first round, then the next year you get around further, then you get to the finals, then you win. Like that's usually a
And every new
progression.
GM has
Yeah.
a new idea, and then you start from scratch. And so we've been very fortunate. We have the same ownership group, led by Wick, and we've had the same general manager basically since
Right.
2004. We've only had 2 coaches. Back on great people and great teams. Rich Gotham's been with us the entire time. We hired Rich Gotham from Lycos, which at the time was very controversial. People said, "Wait a minute, he hasn't run a sports team." But we thought technology was going to be big in sports, and he was a great manager, so he shifted over, and he's been, in my opinion, one of the best presidents in the league. Same thing with Danny Ainge, who adopted technology and brought in Mike Zarin and Daryl Morey from MIT. So I agree with Josh. Stability, backing the best people, affiliating with the best people, and creating a culture, creating a collaborative, winning culture is the key. And you got to take that long-term approach. And that's why I love private equity, and I love Boston. I love the sports. And yeah, you're gonna take your knocks. Even in private equity, we take some knocks here and there from politicians with elections and things coming up. But you got to love what you do, and you got to try to create value and try to make a difference. And that's what we do at the Celtics, and that's what we do at Bain Capital.
If you love what you do and and you got to deliver. At the end of the day, you got to deliver.
But no one can fire you guys. That's the interesting thing about this job, right? There's no forced out. You guys could just lose forever, lose on the court, lose a lot of money. It's like, well, I'm still the owner. You can't get rid of me. Where in the business world, someone will eventually pull the plug, either by taking their investments away or kicking you out of the job.
From my standpoint, if that was happening, I'd probably fire myself. You've got to be successful over a period.
Not everybody would do that.
I look at myself as very accountable to the fans in the city, and so we hold ourselves very accountable. And I wake up every morning and I go to bed every night. Wear loss is super hard. I love winning. I don't. It's strange. I don't love winning as much as I hate losing.
That
but I love winning.
asymmetric, yeah.
And I wake up every day trying to figure out how to make the team better and to engage with the city and make the fan experience better.
Make it better from an on-court point of view or from a business engagement, fan experience, customer point of view?
All of it. But I think, like I said, we're totally focused on bringing a championship to Philly. Totally focused on it, and in Newark and in London, performing well. So I think we're totally focused on the on-court, on-pitch, on-ice performance. And that's not something you can change, at a moment's notice. But that's really what we focus on. And the truth of the matter is, like I said, the business. Yes, I think both Bain and Apollo and Steve and myself are good at building businesses, building teams, and bringing in all the tools of modern business, whether it be science, analytics, medical. But at the end of the day, you got to win.
This is for you.
Thank you.
I'll take that water. We're all the one over there.
Wow.
We're all just slightly off by one.
Still your water?
We're all slightly off by one. Now we'll be fine. So my question is, when you look at the other owners in the league, they come from different backgrounds. You guys have a similar business background. Other guys are tech guys. Other people inherited their teams. They all come from different places. Do you find a synergy with, the guys that are like us, we can have a certain type of conversation about making our teams better, making our leagues better, because we came up the same way, versus a different type of owner who just maybe doesn't get it the way you guys do?
Yeah, I think it's more specific to the individual person and the owners, and the league actually, to our detriment, does a great job spreading good ideas around. So the league learns from each other. It's very collaborative at ownership level. We compete like heck on the court, but we are all our partners in this entity called the NBA, which is now a global enterprise that we have to represent not only our cities but the whole league globally.
Yeah, look, I think the leagues are all evolving to people who have been incredibly successful in other parts of their lives. And you deal with a really smart group of people. And certainly there are private equity or alternatives owners, but then you have people that have had wild success in tech or other businesses. And I think it's a great experience to be part of it. To fight hard on the court or on the ice, and then, and I don't think there's a block on, good ideas or good thoughts, from one industry or another.
You guys are doing a lot with health, player health, the development in terms of the sports science. It feels like that's still early compared to with the analytics, like the whole Daryl thing with the 3-point, the corner, that felt like now we've had that for a few years, whereas the health side feels like we're going to talk more about this over the next 5 or 10 years. What are you guys focused on
I think that's a great question.
I was going to let him go
okay,
first.
good.
I was going to let him go first.
We're focused on keeping our players fit and
Just
feeling
fit,
good
that's it?
and elongating their careers and making them perform as good as they can perform and making sure that they so it's all the basic stuff. And yeah, there are the medical teams across the sports are very large, and it's everything from physical therapists to doctors to tracking how much and when they play and when they practice and when how much they're sleeping and what they're eating, and it's sort of it's a broad lifestyle. When you travel and when you eat, and so there's an incredible amount of detail. All of it goes into kind of things that make their lives better and elongate their careers and make them perform at peak levels when they need to.
Yeah, there's been a big 5-6 years ago. The home of sports medicine science is in Australia, and
Yeah.
they train incredible people to look at all the data and do everything in a database way. 20 years ago, people got certain kinds of operations, or they didn't get operations, or you had a meniscus shaved. There's now all science behind this, as Josh said, and so we brought in a sports scientist, reorganized the whole department. We built a brand new facility that has cold baths, hot baths, X-ray equipment, all the things you need to optimize your player's strength. We have sleep coaches, nutrition coaches, a nutrition center. So I would say from 2003 to now, that has really evolved into you have to be your own health and wellness expert, because long season, if you can cut injuries out, you win games. And
Can you measure an ROI? Is there a number you guys can put to, look, we invested X million dollars in health and player improvement, on the health side, and then now we won more games or we made more money? Is there an actual number you can point to?
We try to track it. It's a long-term project, and I think the big dividend is less games being injured and a longer career for the players. And so when we have a superstar, it's great to keep him around. Look at LeBron. He's kept himself in incredible shape, but he's taken advantage of everything the NBA has to offer in terms of the health.
You think about $100 million a year payroll, kind of whatever you spend in this area has a massive ROI. If you think about the value proposition of a superstar playing another year or playing a few more games or staying, these are, just people. I mean, so if you're providing the best medical care and the best precision wellness to them, they're going to want to be, if you have the best facilities, they're going to want to be at your team. Our players have incredible choice. They can play wherever they want. They've got to feel like you're taking care of them. So the ROI on this is very, very high. It's hard to put a number on a specific hire, but it's a developing area, and it's going to get a lot more investment over time.
For both you guys, in the positions you are in the business world, a lot of what you want to happen is going to happen in terms of transactions, the way companies are run, the way employees will do things. But the NBA in particular is a players' league. They're the stars, the owners are not the stars. Players can kind of do what they want to do. Is that a difficult transition for you guys, coming from what you're used to? It's like, we can't control anything that they're going to do.
Look, whenever you have someone who's the best in the world at what they do, it's your job to recruit and to develop and make them feel great about playing in your city versus other cities.
You need them more than they need you.
We need them more than they need us. And that's no different, truthfully. It's a little different in the sense of the profile of our players, but at some of the largest private equity or alternatives companies, we're recruiting the elite athletes in our particular industry, and the truth of the matter is they have a lot of choice too. It's not as public. They're not media stars, but this is something that, if you get the best people, whether it's your management team, whether it's your ownership group, and whether it's your players or your partners or employees, you're going to win. And I think that this is no different than anything else I've done in my life in terms of attracting and building teams and winning. And so I don't see it as very different, other than, obviously, when you're dealing with people that have, a lot of profile, are big media stars, you have to be there's a special skill to it, and that's been a learning experience for me. But I mean, it's no different.
No different. Just, it's like, oh, I run Apollo and I own the Sixers, and it's basically the same thing. That
It's obviously
can't
different
be true.
from it's you're dealing with.
I know. I think I agree with Josh. There's more similarities.
You think it's more
differences
similar than people think?
We at Bain Capital, we have some of the best investors in the world, and so does Apollo, and Blackstone wants them, and Fidelity wants them.
Well, both
BlackRock wants
the
them.
employees that you guys want, and then the companies that you want to add to your portfolio, because someone else could just spend more and get that company.
Well, the companies is a different story, but the employees, they want our employees and partners, and it's the same philosophy we have at the Celtics. You've got to have a culture that you're all unified. It's got to be fair. You've got to care about the people, truly care about the people, and that's how you build a great private equity firm. It's similar to a basketball team. The players know if you're going the extra yard for them, and you're trying to get them the best care, and you're trying to help them maybe understand financial ramifications of what they do, understand their health issues, understand extending their careers. They feel that, and we inherited a lot of that. The Boston Celtics, for decades, for years, it's a family-run type feeling, and we've kept that feeling and enhanced that feeling in there, and that's given us great. Kevin Garnett came in and he said, I'm really in the NBA now because I'm with the Boston Celtics. I'm gonna die with green on me, and we're gonna retire his number this coming year. So you've really got to create that culture. It takes a long, long time. We had a lot of that in place, and we just try to enhance that. They had a lot of that in place in Philly, and they're trying to enhance it as well. But that's how you build a winning team, winning franchise, whether it be private equity or sports.
Making Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Al Horford, Josh Richardson, Tobias Harris, and our players feel great about playing in Philly, being part of our club, being part of our team. That's my most important job. And so the fundamentals of recruiting world-class players, world-class CEOs, world-class partners, they're very similar.
And the other thing I'd say is Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge, many people poo-poo the word, chemistry, but
You can't measure it. There's no number for it. They
But
don't know what to
clearly,
do with
it is about a team. It's about a team. It's the same in private equity. It's the same at the Celtics. And so you can have equally talented players, but if they're not playing as a team, they don't buy into the culture, they don't buy into winning, you're going to have a problem.
And I'm sure that's true when you guys buy a company. There's a culture of that company, and sometimes
Absolutely.
you guys need to change the culture if there's a problem, or keep the culture but just make the operations better.
And successful sports owners have come in and who bought losing programs. You turn them into winning programs because of that culture, because you're bringing in that consistency, you're bringing in that fairness, you're bringing in the care for the individuals and the players, and doing everything you can to win, and they see that.
For example, like the HBSC culture and the Sixers culture, it's incredibly diverse. It's communicative, lots of backgrounds, lots of people around the table. It's flat. There's very much a focus on best idea win, meritocracy. And we have people from all walks of life, all races, everything. And that's really, to me, a model for business. And we're trying to get there. I'm trying to get there everywhere that I work or I'm involved with. And in the case of HBC, we're further along, truthfully, than many of the companies that I see. So, so the principles, again, are the same.
I'm going to go early to some of these audience questions because there's a lot of them and they're pretty good. You mentioned that sports teams are long-term assets that last multiple decades. How do esports fit into that, and what is the time horizon for Pat? I'll start with you because I know you guys have a esports.
Yeah, so we have a great esports team, company. We're in 2 of the 4 major esports. We're in a bunch of others. And esports has tremendous, you ultimately want to watch, in many cases, the sports that you play. And there's more than 1 billion people that are gaming. And so there's massive fan engagement in esports. And so over time, I think it's real. I think it's going to grow. And so, being there early for us has been a really positive thing. And we're investing in our teams and the games that we play in, whether it be CSGO or League of Legends, which are our 2 major games, and trying to win with the right players and the right coaching and the right GMs and everything that you would expect in a sports league. Clearly, in esports, you have publishers And it's a little complicated how you actually, the money part of it, you were asking me like, how do you make money in this stuff? The money part of it is still pretty complicated. And so we're figuring that out, but it's long run, I think it's going to be a big part of the sports ecosystem.
I think you're going to see, we have an esports team, the Celtics, and my family office was an early investor in Fortnite, the Epic game.
Should have done pretty well, huh?
Yeah, what a great company.
Heard of that one.
If you've heard of it, it's one thing if your kids have heard of it. If you've heard of it.
And what you're seeing is again, this increases fan engagement, because if you're playing basketball on esports, you're watching basketball, they're emulating each other, and the technology is just, you think about it when, unfortunately, with data ourselves, when we grew up, you had Pong with a little thing around. Sometimes I'm watching esports basketball and I think it's a real game on. Every year it's getting better and better. Now you're going to virtual reality. So there's a lot of crossover. And you're starting, in some countries, starting to surpass people who do more esports than they are even watching live games.
Right, and I think he's bringing up, so Y2K, now you're seeing gaming, betting, as it comes in, like, sort of analytics packages that you can buy to watch the game, two-way interaction, two-way interface. I mean, the NBA is spending a lot of time and the other leagues are spending a lot of time thinking about this. So that's all going to increase fan engagement. And that's beyond esports, which are, games that obviously right now are primarily games that are played on, with video. I'm talking about like the NBA simulated games or the other leagues.
Epic had a Fortnite tournament that they played at the US Open tennis venue. They filled up the venue for 3 days. So it is definitely, definitely growing.
When you talk about your fans, your customers, those can be two different groups of people. They're not necessarily the same person, because you could have a fan who never spends any money on your teams. So how do you guys use the analytics, the way you understand customers from the business world? How do you deal with that on the sports side, where it's like, yeah, we've got fans, but they may never spend any money, but they still matter to us, and we have to engage with them?
We don't really think about that. I mean, what we're trying to do is make the fan experience better and make it easier. And that could be, and by the way, a lot of times that's just good common sense business. So understanding or being able to engage over internet or over Wi-Fi, and in terms of understanding what people are buying and what lines are long, what lines are short, like allowing people to order food online, allowing people to understand where the closest place for them to buy something is. All that stuff is just good business, but it's also fan engagement. We don't wake up thinking, like, how do we kind of cater to those fans that spend more money? What we're trying to do is make it easier for everyone to have a great experience, and then make it easier, and then provide things around that experience that they want, that they can spend money on. And if you do that, it works out. And there's still a long way to go in that.
Both in the Bain Capital portfolio and at the Celtics, I think in the last 10 years there's been an explosion in data analytics, not only for the basketball side, but for the customer side.
Right.
And
ticketing, marketing, all of that.
You use the data analytics to really give the customer what the customer wants. So some fans,
because they want different things.
Yeah,
depending on the.
So it's all about customization. You're really trying to use technology to have a one-on-one relationship with any fan and give that fan what they want. And the technology allows you to segment your fans, so you're giving them greater and greater value because they're seeing what they want to see. Some fans love to see dunks, some fans love to see three-point shots, some fans love certain amenities in the stadium. You can learn all this by doing these data analytics, and our group has done a fabulous job kind of customizing the program so every fan gets what they want exactly out of it, and that's going to continue to go up and up and up as we go forward.
There are literally dozens or hundreds of internet-based fan experience, whether it's like how they engage with the game itself over social media or directly over their phone, whether it be a ticketing platform. We just invested in a group ticketing platform.
HBSC invested in a ticketing platform.
Yeah, we have a venture capital arm run by Brad Farkas and Chip Austin, David Abrams, that is investing in. We made 10 investments, and there's just hundreds of things that are being developed to allow for people to enjoy sports, whether it be sports content or playing sports or social media around sports or the fan experience or fan engagement And we're because of the teams, we're able to use the sort of information and the knowledge that we have as to how we run the teams to make great investments. And so that's really been fun and exciting, and the experience is really improving.
A question for you, because this came up from the audience. You mentioned modern management theory. How do you apply that to running a sports team? What's been an example of a rewarding operational change you've made to extract value?
I would say the biggest thing that we did was to come in and say, this is all about the fan and the customer and connectivity. So previous 2003, again, there was a mentality that there was a separation on the court between the players and the fans, and they each had their own spaces. That now has become integrated, and the more integration you can have. So our folks under Rich Gotham and Sully and the team have really designed a whole potpourri of fan engagement vehicles so that we can bring people in. We do community activities with people. We bring them to games. We'll have certain nights for certain groups to come in, and just again, taking that experience and customizing it for those fans and giving them what they want. That's the key.
We've got a lot of questions about the Crystal Palace investment. So one, which is what's your thought process and strategy? There could have been other attractive clubs in the EPL. How is it different from the NBA, which has franchising rather than promotion and relegation? And just so a lot of questions about what the Crystal Palace is doing.
So it's pretty simple.
Because you didn't grow up in London. I mean, I get the Philly thing and the Newark thing.
I played soccer, and all through high school, I never made it.
You never made it to the EPL, yeah.
Never made it to the EPL. I never made it to college, let alone EPL. But look, I think it's the most popular game. The EPL is the most popular league in the world right now, and soccer is the most watched game in the world. And there's massive fan interest, and Crystal Palace is in London, and being in London when you play in England is a big advantage. And in fact, we're the only big club in South London, and there are 5 clubs in North London, and they each have about 3 million people. So we have a massive catchment area, and about 15% of the entire Premier League comes out of our neighborhood, which is near Croydon. And so it's a fantastic club. Our strategy with the club is to invest in our training facility. We're building a new training facility to improve our stadium, which is So
it's the same sort of approach that you would do here in the States. We want to invest in the facilities, we want to invest in player health and development, and you're bringing that same approach over there.
Yeah, and then it's investing in obviously the players themselves. And so in terms of structure, right, the major difference between the U.S. sports leagues and the Premier League, which is incredible for fans, but not too good for owners.
Nobody feels sorry for you guys.
Is that they have this thing called relegation. So there are multiple leagues below the Premier League, and the media payment, probably 2/3 of our revenue relates to the media payment that we get as being part of the Premier League. But if you finish 18th or 19th or 20th out of 20, you get what's called relegated. It means you get pushed down to the lower league, and then the top 3 clubs from that league go up. And there are a number of leagues below that where the same thing is happening. So every game, every match is interesting to the fans, because whether you're in 17th and you're fighting to avoid relegation, or you're in 7th and you're trying to get into the Europa League, which is to play against people like Barcelona, and you only get there if you're in above 5th. There's this incredible story around every game, and so that's amazing for the fans. But the financial consequences of that can be tough. As an owner.
Structurally, it's just it's a lot harder.
A lot more heart attacks.
Your media payment goes, you get about, it goes from over £100 million to.
So why buy a team? It seems like another NBA, like another American team, like an NHL team, you can't get relegated. MLB, and I feel like you could just keep losing and you'll keep making your money. This sounds This sounds like the real world finally, right?
It's the real world. It's a jungle.
So he's just laughing it up here. Like, we got a 20-win season 1 year. We're fine.
Again,
we'll be back.
Again, like, I think it goes back to the same fundamentals.
They'll figure it out.
We love sports. We're bringing in a lot of analytics and a lot of the things we've talked about here to improve our team, to improve our roster. We have a great partner over there, Steve Parrish, that lives, breathes, eats the team, is involved in every decision, and allows the hands-on approach with sports teams is very important. It's hard to do that in London if you live here. And we love the club and the history of the club and what it stands for and the fan base, and I think we're going to do just fine.
There's a question here about how do you see the future of sports franchise values? My question really is, do you guys even pay attention to that stuff? Like, oh, Forbes ranked these teams at X billion dollars. Do you guys really care about that, or do you just really care about the on-court performance, the operational, our revenues, our P&L each year? Because we're not selling, so it doesn't really matter what the magazine thinks we're valued at.
I think that it's just a reflection of the growth of the league. So if we continue to do well as a league, we continue to go global, we continue to invest in the players, then the values will continue to go up. And I think we're only in the early stages of it because we are not totally globalized yet. The NBA has just started a league in Africa. I think that's going to be very exciting. They're looking at doing things in India. I think someday you'll see teams.
Latin America is being
in Europe, Latin America. So there's a whole vast universe out there of people that love basketball. And again, being one of the two global sports, it's a fantastic thing to be involved in.
Look, it's a scorecard. It says how you're doing. You certainly are ranked against other.
But do you guys just laugh about it when you see the rankings? Because like, well, I know it would go for a different price than what the magazine or anyone estimates it at.
It's one thing it's one data point that's out there. And like, look, our employee, the people that work at HPC, our partners, have the business staff. Have equity in the company, and they look at it, and it matters to them, and it matters to us that it's improving, but it's obviously so I don't think it doesn't matter, but it's just one data point.
It's just a benchmark, and it will be what it will be if people decide to get liquidity.
Okay, so it does matter. That's good to know that you guys, because there's different opinions on it. And you're right, there are other smaller minority owners that might need to get liquidity. It might matter more to them.
We have partners, and we have employee owners that care. They may not have the same time frame that we do.
Obviously, these valuations have gone up because of the sports media rights, the TV rights that have come in big in the last few years. But there's so much fragmentation now. There's so much digital disruption. There's so many other places that people can get their content. How do you guys see that playing out in the next couple of years?
I think there's the distribution of sports content, and that is an environment that's under massive change, whether it be, the cable system or online versus over the top, or there's a lot of ways, and basically people more and more want to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it, right, on their phone, on their device, and that's just happening, and obviously that has a ton of ramifications across many different things, but at the end of the day, there's still one Boston Celtics. There's still one Philadelphia 76ers. They've got to get, there's still one NBA. There's still one NHL. There's still one Premier League. And so, like, as a content generator, all that change of how content is distributed really isn't going to hurt the content generators. What matters to us is that more people are watching it. More people are
from anywhere.
Interested.
More people just across the globe.
Anywhere.
It doesn't matter.
And so like for us, long run, we just have to put the best product we can on the ice, on the court, on the pitch, and keep making it easier for fans everywhere to enjoy it.
Yeah, David Stern, when we met him when we first bought the club, he really had the vision that the content, was what it was about. So he used to always say content is king. I think he was right then. I think he's right now. And there's going to be ups and downs in the distribution system, but if you have the product that people want to see, it'll now get to even more people because you can buy it on streaming. You can buy it through a cable company. You're going to see a lot of disruption in those distribution mechanisms, but the base content is even more valuable because the problem today is advertisers trying to aggregate lots of eyeballs. And everyone wants to see the NBA Finals. Everyone wants to see the playoffs. Everyone wants to see the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. So the more people you can get it to, the better. And this technology has allowed, for massive distribution. So it's just a question of how we get through that cycle and what the roles of those players are: streaming companies, cable companies, aggregators.
Are there things you guys have learned from your business investments, from your portfolio companies at Bain and Apollo, that give you some insight for how this next few years is going to play out in terms of sports media disruption? Is there anything that lessons you can take from, okay, in this industry, here's what happened. I think that gives us a playbook over here.
You just want to be adaptable. What we learn from our company is that the best companies are adaptable and flexible, and they can kind of move and change on a dime. So you need a management team. Your whole management team has to kind of look forward to where we're going and say, how do we position ourselves as this media landscape changes? And there's going to be a lot of disruption in it for sure. And if we look out 10 years, you may be seeing NFL games, NBA games on Amazon or now the kind of the .com folks, and the whole landscape may shift, and the networks will battle for that. And again, a key piece of the properties that any content aggregator to get eyeballs wants is sports, because it's the one thing you want to see live. It's the one thing you have this huge emotional connection to, and it's kind of across cultures and across countries.
Yeah, we've had we own dozens of local television stations. We've looked at dozens of investments in this area, and to underscore Steve's point, the value of sports content to this whole ecosystem is massive, and it really it underscores.
And growing because it combats fragmentation.
And it underscores for me that we just need to continue to make the content that we're putting out there better in terms of more accessible and more interesting to a lot of different people. You have to have a very broad offering of content to people in a very accessible way.
Is there anything, and now there are only 3.5 minutes to go, so these will be the quicker lightning round questions.
Lightning round.
Anything sports-wise, tech and analytics, is there something that you guys have tried to do, you can't implement yet? Is there something on your wish list that you want to get done through any of your teams?
I mean, I think that we're in the early stages of the use of analytics and the use of sports science in terms of how they impact these teams. And we're every day drinking from a fire hose in terms of investing in those areas and trying to attract, the best data scientists, the best medical people to our system to be able to continue to compete against, 29 or 30, depending on the sport, or 31 other owners that are all very smart, that are all very well financed. And so, to me, those are the areas that science is definitely going to impact sports. And so you ignore it at your own peril, and you have to embrace it and embrace innovation, embrace, and attract, those world-class athletes who can work anywhere they want.
We, at Bain Capital last spring, we had a global partner technology summit, which the theme of is that every business we buy, whether it be a widget manufacturer or a clothing manufacturer or a brand, they're all technology businesses now. And I think that same thing applies to the Boston Celtics, to the NBA and the sports leagues. We are now, gone from an in-arena, primarily fans of the gate, to a ubiquitous technology business that you have to have more shoulder programming, more accessibility in mobile, more accessibility in streaming, and probably new technologies that'll come in 3D. They've been talking about for years. And people want to watch the games on the go. So better mobile products. How do you position the game so they're great on phones? Shorter attention spans. The great thing about the NBA is you're in and out of a game in somewhere around 2 hours and 10 minutes, and that has been very attractive for today's generation. That it's not going to take 3-4 hours to watch a game. They love the fast action every second, kind of the ADD generation. And so I think recognizing that you're not a sports business, you're a technology business is key.
And then I think just going back to the other things, how do you continue to engage in a more deep way with the community? How do you attract the most diverse pool of talent, to these organizations? At the end of the day, We're in a new era here, and those fundamentals are cut across every business that we're involved with, but are particularly important in sports.
My guess is 5 years from now, if we have the same panel again with the three of us, the questions will be very different. The way tech and science and analytics change. There's only 25 seconds to go.
One other thing I really like
Gotta keep it real quick.
that I like about the NBA is that we have great partnership with the players, and the players are actually very sophisticated, people on social media and all the rest, and we're all in this together. So the 50-50 partnership with the players, I think, has been an incredible.
Is it 50-50 or is it like 51-49, 52-48?
It's basically 50-50 partnership, and the players love it. We love it because when the league benefits, everybody benefits.
That's 3 zeros. We're out of time. Thanks, guys.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you guys in the audience for staying with us.